Sequels, reboots, remakes, legacy sequels, spin-offs, and prequels may have been dominating the output of the film industry over the past few years, but the art of sequel making still remains elusive, and we frequently encounter movie sequels that should never have been made. They can be soulless iterations that are made just to capitalize on people's interest in an IP. Yet, there are enough movies that needed sequels but never got one, because some characters leave us wanting more of them, and some movies leave incomplete storylines that are never resolved, such as the many teasers and Easter eggs in the MCU that are yet to be addressed. So, some stories require follow-ups, and they usually get audiences very excited. Although rare, the phenomenon of sequels being better than the original movie is an observed consequence of dedicated filmmaking that treats the original material, the audience, and the creativity that the art form is based on with enough respect. Unfortunately, many sequels are still just products of the capitalistic mindset that guides studio executives, and they frequently betray their audiences. American Psycho 2, All-American Girl, 2002. Mila Kunis as Rachel massaging William Shatner as Starkman's shoulders in American Psycho 2. Mila Kunis can't save the train wreck that American Psycho sequel becomes because of its poorly developed premise and its treatment of its predecessor. Cutthroat college competition is a good starting point for a student's psychosis. Unfortunately, the writer's endeavor to prove her psychopathy turns her into a caricature, and this sequel feels like an unintentional parody of the original. American Psycho is a horror movie that follows its main character's descent into madness through a satirical representation of the world of investment banking. Not only does All-American Girl feel barely like a spiritual successor and makes innumerable allusions to compensate, but it also features Patrick Bateman's unceremonious death that disrespects the original movie and betrays the audience's expectations. Transformers: Age of Extinction, 2014. Transformers: Age of Extinction, 1. Shia LaBeouf left the Transformers franchise because he felt Michael Bay's movies were irrelevant, but for fans of the franchise, his absence is disappointing after keeping up with a trilogy of movies. Most of the worst Transformers movie plot holes begin with 2014's Transformers: Age of Extinction, which spoils the continuity of the lore and ruins the dedicated audience's experience. The number of retcons in Transformers: Age of Extinction is not only frustrating, but also makes it feel like an unofficial reboot for no reason. However, the new characters and these confusing lore rewrites make this new story particularly difficult to stay invested in. There's nothing of substance anymore, and watching Grimlock spew fire can only carry you so far. Grease 2, 1982. A still from Grease 2. When neither John Travolta nor Olivia Newton-John signed on to do the sequel to their instant classic hit musical, that was perhaps a sign that the studio should have taken to halt the production of Grease 2. The sizzling chemistry between the two stars elevates the electric soundtrack of the musical, earning it a spot in the Hall of Fame. So, the fact that Grease 2 tells a story that's a lazy, gender-switched retelling of the same story and has a soundtrack that's missing some of the same punch as the original's soundtrack naturally leaves fans feeling betrayed. The leads try their best, but they don't have as much chemistry, and the film is an entirely unnecessary, lifeless sequel. Staying Alive, 1983. Cynthia Rhodes and John Travolta dancing in Staying Alive. Saturday Night Fever is an iconic 80s classic that has one of the best disco soundtracks ever put together, John Travolta's incredible dancing, and the timeless message of self-acceptance that is delivered through the arc of Tony Manero, Travolta. It all makes for something that many fans from the decade love to this day. However, these two movies didn't need blending through what would be officially touted as a sequel to Saturday Night Fever. Staying Alive, helmed by Sylvester Stallone, who has a cameo in the movie, turns Tony Manero into the Rocky of the musical theater world, and follows the performance of a Broadway show whose elements don't fit into any real musical. Highlander 2, The Quickening, 1991. A climactic sword fight in Highlander 2, The Quickening. Why there are 5 Highlander movies is inexplicable, because not only is the first film a perfectly self-contained whimsical fantasy adventure that doesn't need a sequel, but its follow-up is also one of the worst movie sequels of all time and should have discouraged further continuation. The later sequels aren't significantly better, and there should only have been one Highlander. The lore of Highlander almost automatically makes a sequel logically inconsistent, but through the introduction of aliens, writers and the studio found an excuse to continue the story. As if messing with the lore to that extent wasn't enough betrayal of its fandom, the movie goes further into inexcusable territory by somehow reviving characters who died in the previous film. Karate Kid, Legends, 2025. Mr. Han, Jackie Chan, explaining to Daniel LaRusso, Ralph Macchio, in Karate Kid, Legends. Image via Sony Pictures. Not everyone enjoys the next Karate Kid starring Hilary Swank opposite Pat Morita's Mr. Miyagi, because she doesn't feel like a worthy successor to Ralph Macchio's Daniel LaRusso. However, Mr. Miyagi's wise diction and Swank's performance make it worthwhile. Similarly, the Karate Kid reboot starring Jaden Smith and Jackie Chan at least has rewatch value because of their mentor-mentee chemistry. Karate Kid Legends contributes to the things about the Karate Kid movies that make no sense by introducing an entirely new character while bringing back Jackie Chan and Ralph Macchio. Both Swank's Julie and Smith's Dre are missing without any reference to them, which feels like a betrayal to the fans who've seen all 5 movies before Karate Kid Legends Son of the Mask, 2005. Jamie Kennedy as the Mask holding a mask in Son of the Mask. It is a shame that the follow-up to Jim Carrey's iconic and hilarious movie wasted a comedic talent like Jamie Kennedy by somehow giving the Mask more time with his character's dog than with him. It's also jarring to see the contrast between how unrestrained and chaotic Carrey was when his character wore the mask and how wooden Kennedy is. Moreover, Son of the Mask features what's arguably the worst CGI baby in film history, who is somehow automatically born with the powers of the mask and must defend himself against the attacks of a vengeful dog who wears the mask to kill him out of jealousy. Ruining the legacy of an incredible movie like The Mask is an unforgivable betrayal. Speed 2, Cruise Control, 1997. Sandra Bullock and Willem Dafoe in Speed 2, Cruise Control. Speed, which tried to be the new Die Hard and succeeded as Die Hard on a Bus, is memorable for Keanu Reeves' uniquely behaved protagonist. His soft mannerisms and lack of macho heroism make him both realistic and refreshing, and his incredible chemistry with co-star Sandra Bullock is the icing on the cake, especially because her presence is equally important.